Ready. So, speaking of success, oh, jeez.
There we go.
That
Keyboard,
is not
keyboard,
Kyle Fouts.
keyboard.
That
wasn't
keyboard.
working there. Wow, Mike. Yeah, that darn keyboard.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
Yeah.
So we do not have Kyle Fouts in the studio. I must have been drinking when I was doing
I'm
this.
surprised you didn't
Tom
blame me for
Wolfe.
this. Usually you just throw it right at me, buddy.
Yeah, this was you. I sent you the right
You're right.
ones.
There
and
it
then
is.
You went,
There it
you
is.
went and changed it. Anyways, so this is the picture is Tom Wolfe, and that's
in the
who we
house.
have in studio. Tom Wolfe is not only one of our most successful agents here at West USA, but and I want you to take down his information because I always get a lot of calls. And we always see a lot of Facebook posts in our groups of who do we have that we can refer our commercial clients to. And for me personally, Tom is the guy that I send all of my commercial clients to. So Tom, welcome to the big show.
Thanks, Mike.
And I just want you to know, as these slides proceed, it's still going to have Kyle's name.
So don't call Kyle for these referrals. Call Tom Wolfe.
You don't want to
Yeah.
call it to Kyle.
Might want to go to Kyle and make sure Kyle refers all the business to you, Tom.
I at least got your email right.
You did.
Yep.
You did.
Okay.
All right.
true.
All right. So as we always like to do, we like to bring in our top producers and just have them share, 5 tips to success, 5 things, 5 secrets that they have adopted and implemented into their business to be successful. So let's get rocking and rolling. The first one, and we kind of talked about this already in the 3-pack. You are not an employee, you are a CEO. But I want to throw a caveat into this, Tom, because typically most of us, I'm not going to say all of us, but most of us, when we start real estate, we don't typically understand this. We are just an agent. And successful agents along their career path have what I like to call that aha moment, like where they like, okay, wait a minute. This is not just selling real estate. Like I'm actually running a business here.
Go figure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's the premise of this comes from one of my favorite books, The E-Myth. And in The E-Myth, he talks about, when you're building your business, you start with the end in mind. And a part of that exercise is you identify, well, what are all the roles that are in a successful company? You have a CEO, you have somebody in charge of operations, you have your marketing officer, you have accounting, you have sales.
You have a
And-
janitor, you have a receptionist.
Absolutely. And, in the beginning, yes, you're a one-person shop. You have to fill all those roles, but you don't just jump in and start doing stuff. You should define what those roles look like. You write out job descriptions for everything that you do so that you're following a path. You're not just, bouncing from one thing to another. So, we hear this advice all the time in real estate, like treat your real estate as a business. You are a business, right? But I think you can take that a step further. And so it was interesting when you were talking about taking, like you said, November, December off. View that through the lens. If you're the CEO of your company, your real estate business, and your salesperson, your real estate agent, is taking 6 weeks off, is that acceptable? If you're the CEO of the company, probably not, right? You're probably not going to allow your sales staff to do that. You should view it through that lens because if you are planning to grow a successful business, you have to fulfill all the obligations of these different roles, and understand what that looks like. So.
Well, typically, I actually love that. I've never even considered this, and I might, for those that show up in surprise, they might hear a little bit of Tom or Kyle's perspective on this, of actually because Nick and I, we always talk about it when we do our new agent orientation about, you are the CEO of your own business, and here are all those roles, and a lot of times it's just anecdotal, but I love the concept of taking it down, say, okay, what does that look? What is that specific job description for that role? Because then you've got to figure out as an agent of how you implement that. And if you can't do it, who do you bring in to help you?
100%. 100%. I recently brought on a new team member and, of course he had, I handed him a 2-page job description, responsibilities, expectations, day to day, all of that. Because, that's something I already had. I didn't have to build that out for him, by the way. This was something that I had already documented in advance because, I do believe in that methodology that you should have this all identified beforehand.
And I don't know where you are on this one, Todd. And I've actually adopted this from my business partner, Ryan Gertis. We always talk about that concept, and this is going to go back into the different roles. of identifying your strengths and weaknesses so that you can work on your weaknesses. Our philosophy is if there's strengths and you're really good at it, and especially if it's making you money, double down on that and then outsource the weaknesses.
Well, that's why a lot of corporations today don't have Tony Robbins come out and speak anymore, because it's been proven that when you over motivate somebody, they have a false expectation of what the duties and the responsibilities are, and then they go back to the job and they find themselves in a deeper depression after they get back than they would have been had they just stayed the course. But to focus specifically on what we're talking about, this is one of those scenarios that when I started my team, and this was many years ago, I realized I was more of a visionary. I was more of a meat person. I brought the how-to. I'd done it myself already. I'd proven it. And so what I wanted was I was more of, let me build a team. Let me show other people how to be successful individually. And then through their success, I became successful, not through my own. But what I'm saying is I had to identify, Mike, that I really didn't want to get in the car every single day and drive people all around. I had to realize I had a gift. I had something I could give that ended up making a difference in other people's lives. So it doesn't matter whether you're, a great salesperson or you're a great manager. You have to identify what do you want to do every single day that you're going to wake up every morning and be passionate about, and that's how you grow your business.
Yeah, and I think the role that we have not discussed, and by the way, Nick, it's one thing that I've never been accused of is being over motivated, but that's another topic for another day. But you're also in charge of business development, right? And that's really the crux of what we do, and we've got to figure out, how to improve on that and outsource the other things. But anyways, I love this. Everything in your business should be a documented system. What do you mean by that, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, this does kind of dovetail off the first point in the sense that you start by documenting everything. But I think that if you really look at all the opportunities in your business, everything can really be documented. So, and if you have any hope of scaling your business, this is where this really comes into play. You cannot scale your business without documenting your systems and following a routine, a pattern, a checklist, whatever that may be. And even if your goal is not to scale your business, maybe you just want to do a handful or two handfuls of deals a year and you don't have a plan to become a big team or even a huge top producing agent, documenting your systems can improve your service delivery still. So, and it can be the little things like, do you document, when you're out showing properties, do you have a checklist? So what type of things am I going to present when I'm showing properties to somebody? So I'm going to pre-plan with this type of information. I'm going to have this all written down. I'm going to have it on a handy sheet because I know that most of my clients want to know this information about this. I'm going to tell them this as we go through the property. So you can checklist just about anything, and it's going to make you a better agent. It's going to improve your service delivery to your clients. It's certainly going to help you scale. And then this is something that if you do grow and you do scale, your employees, your team, they can follow these documented systems too.
I think the way that I view this, the overall goal is you got to put yourself in a position of maybe one day I get seriously hurt and I'm out of the game for 6 months, or I'm going to now bring on an agent to my team, or I'm going to bring on a transaction coordinator. What manual do you hand them? Is there I envision a 3-ring binder where everything that happens inside my business is documented, checklist. I think one of the biggest ones, and what checklists do for me is it avoids people falling through the cracks. And we talk so much about our after the close systems. When you hand the keys to a buyer, what happens over the next 12 months? And is there a checklist?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you need to think, some of them are obvious, right? So most of us have a checklist for when a property's in escrow, things that you follow, make sure you don't miss deadlines, make sure you protect your clients and all that. But I think you just need to expand your thinking on that. And just like you said, Mike, what about all the other things? Are those things going to fall on the floor? The little things, should be documented and have checklists for those.
And it ensures that you didn't miss anything. And I think that's the most important thing too. When you're dealing with the consumer's experience and you want the consumer to finish with your services and walk away with a predetermined or a preconceived notion of the value that you provided during that process. Michael Mayer said it best in some of his writings in the 7 Levels of Communication. But this is one of those things where if you can't track it, you can't control it. It's just that simple. So if you have a system and say it's an open house system, what are all the things you need to do to hold an effective open house? It's ensuring that you kind of, or someone else can put everything together for you so that when you show up, it's like a surgeon. The surgeon didn't clean the utensils and get the room prepped and, and prep the patient. That was all done. The surgeon walked in the door, put on his scrubs, washed his hands, whatever the process is, got in there and was handed a scalpel and said, go to work. And that's really what you want, whether it's somebody setting listing appointments for you or if it's somebody that's preparing your documentation for you to be able to hold your open house. Yeah, maybe I'm driving this a little farther, but at the same token, if you can't document it, you can't track it, you can't make yourself better.
I think what it also does is it helps you evaluate the effectiveness of your system. So to your point, Todd, if here is my checklist for every time I do an open house, and from setting up the open house to marketing the neighborhood to these are the types of conversations that I'm having. And if after 6 months I don't have any leads, I can't say open houses don't work. I can now go back to my system and go, okay, what's not working because something is not translating.
I would just say on this, luck favors the prepared. If you are documenting what you are doing in your business, and I think the escrow portion is the easy part, right? We know what we have to do in an escrow. We're told by ADRE and by our broker staff. It's the other stuff, like you guys touched on. How are you marketing? How are you getting those clients? What are you doing inside of your business day in and day out? And if you can't write it down, you can't track it. And just like Mike said, it's after 6 months, maybe it's not open houses don't work. Maybe it's what you're doing. It doesn't work. So I think this is a super important piece, and a lot of agents are going to shut down and go, I don't want to do it. It's not that much work. It's a little bit every single day.
Well, this is obviously great information, and people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, Kyle Faust, after all these
He's
years,
so
has
smart.
finally brought it." I just want to be clear: we are in studio with Tom Wolf.
Good follow-up, Mike. Good follow-up. Yeah.
All right, I love this because I just love to know what other people are doing, and I love the fact because you're one of the only people that that I've ever had bring this kind of concept to the table because I'm a huge fan. I am constantly looking outside of our industry. A CEO is a CEO. A business is a business. There's just different nuances and there's commodities that we're selling. But look, watch, follow outside of your industry to avoid what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I mean this can be a very unpopular opinion, right? Because I know a lot of great real estate coaches. In this room, there's a lot of great content and information that comes just from a group like this, and it's not. You should be absorbing that, especially as a newer agent. You should be taking in all of the real estate related content that you can. That's critical. And in the beginning, I don't know that you are necessarily looking outside of the business as much. But as you grow your business and you try to scale it, you have to start to look into other areas. Because what will inevitably happen is some of this advice and information we get, you see everyone else doing the same thing. Yeah. And so you have to either customize it or you have to look outside the industry and find fresh new ideas. I think like one of the places I see this show up a lot where I don't necessarily see a lot of fresh content is on social media among my peers and what they're posting. And, it's very effective for a lot of them. But, for me, because I surround myself by so many of my peers, I do see the same thing over and over repeated out there again. And I question like, how effective is that? So for me, I really like to follow, like you said, Mike, CEOs, salespeople in other companies. I talk to my friends who are in sales and other industries constantly. Mm-hmm. And these are not just friend-to-friend conversations. These are business conversations. And I am constantly picking their brain. And they do the same to me. What's effective? What type of objections do you get? How did you deal with that? How are you handling this marketing, issue that you're having and getting people to understand your product and all of this? Those are my most effective, conversations and information I get. And truthfully, they really energize me quite a bit because it is fresh and new.
I always try to teach my kids. We have a saying in our house. We have a lot of sayings. One of them is just don't be that guy. When you leave the house, I want you to make it your goal. Don't be that guy. But the second one is, and I've constantly taught them from the time that they started to hang out with friends, is you always got to consider your source of information. And I think, going back to the concept of coaches, who are you getting advice from? Just because somebody calls themselves a coach doesn't necessarily mean that they should be a coach, or they've got the chops, or they're at the same place in life that you're at. And the second thing is, and there's obviously a time and a place, and West USA's got an incredible coaching program. But I think to your point, Tom, you also at some point have to go outside of that and look at business coaches that are that are going to help you create a business.
To that point, Mike, I use the term mentor instead of coach. And the reason I chose the word mentor is because a coach really is an accountability partner. You really kind of need to know what your objectives are, and then the coach holds you accountable to achieving those. But the mentor role is more of who's doing what I'm doing and how are they successful. But to both of your points, I don't want to be another cookie cutter coming up in the real estate world. What can I do differently? If I was, my tagline on all my emails is live life on purpose. If I'm going to spend an hour of my time, I want to have better results than somebody else in real estate spending an hour of their time. And so I look to people that are in similar industries as well. It doesn't have to be. But to your point, Tom, salespeople. Mike, how many years have you and I been telling people that's the one thing that brokerages don't teach anymore is sales. And to the fact that you can go out and if you find another service industry like stockbrokers or insurance sales, people that have a very similar objective to attain their next buyer or seller, their next client, the next insurance policy, those are the people that are struggling just like you and I are. And how are they overcoming those types of things?
All right, so I think one of the takeaways from this point, and write this down, number one, find somebody who owns a business or is running a business that is not real estate related, or at least not in, as far as licensed agents go, and take them out to lunch and pick their brain about, running a business. And two, I love the idea of talk to people who are in sales that aren't, selling real estate. You're gonna glean a lot of information.
Yeah, and I think that goes for your networking as well, Mike. So watch your networking. I think people tend to fall into networking with those that they're comfortable with, and guess what? That tends to be other real estate agents. We all love to be in a room with other agents because it's easy, right? I mean, we can talk about the business and things like that, but you will learn a lot by networking outside of our industry.
All right, can't lose unqualified leads.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one that we encounter all the time in our commercial mentorship program, for example. So when people are new to the business, they tend to get really, really excited about opportunities. And that excitement level goes up the bigger the opportunity is, like in dollar value, for example. So when you get that phone call or somebody mentions, hey, this is a $2 million buyer opportunity, what we find is that like in the newer agents, they tend to just run out and chase that as hard as they can. And so one of the things, obviously, this is simple. It's one of the first things you learn in real estate is how to qualify your clients, and that you should qualify your clients. But we see that go out the window all the time, and the reason it goes out the window is because people are afraid of losing that opportunity. They're afraid that if they push that person at all, try to qualify them, ask them for any additional information, they're going to lose them. That person will go to somebody else. And so when we get opportunities that come from the people we coach, the mentees, we get a lot of pushback. They're like, well, no, we have to send them properties. They're in town tomorrow, and they want to see 20 properties, and we have to provide this to them, or they're going to go somewhere else. So, this is kind of where I came up with this concept: is you can't lose unqualified business if they're not willing to do some basic levels of qualification. Doesn't mean they need to give you their life's financial history, open up every bank account they have. In my business, we work with a lot of business owners. And sometimes some high net worth and things like that. They might not want to open all that up to you right away. that's fine. There are other things that you can do to qualify them, like we do an intake call. That's something that we require. It doesn't take long. It's only 5 or 10 minutes, but if they're not willing to jump on the call and do that intake call with us, like that's a qualifying step for us.
But Tom, that goes back to, I think it was point number 2, as far as having documented systems in place. What does that documented system look like when you get that lead? Because it shouldn't matter the dollar value. The system is the system is the system.
100%. That can help take some of the human emotion out of it, because I mean that's really what drives this, is your emotion of the fear of losing that type of opportunity. For some agents that may be half of their whole year, right? If they could close one of those type of deals, and so they tend to just get emotional about it versus following a checklist, following a qualifying checklist. And so what I tell them, if sometimes these people do go away, rarely do we hear a success story about them closing somewhere else. Very, very rarely. So that's why I say you can't lose unqualified business. It was never business to begin with. It was just an inquiry.
How do you handle then, you're in a different place, obviously, than a newer agent. So there's that element of being able to take control of the situation, being able to take control of the buyer and seller, but also do it in a way where you are presenting value. I mean, when you present value, when I go, okay, I need Tom to represent me, so I'm now as a buyer, I'm gonna go that extra mile to get Tom what he needs to get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd be surprised about how much value you can show just by asking intelligent questions to a prospect. I mean, they can tell that you know your business just by the questions you ask, and the fact that you're taking the time. I mean, who are they going to respect more? The agent who just shows up at the very first property and is meeting them for the first time, or the agent who insists that they have a 5-10 minute phone call before they ever go do that? I mean, for me, I would respect that person more, who's putting some requirements
I wish
on
my
me.
doctor would do that. Can we just have
I
a
know.
5-minute call before I come in?
So I look at this as that there's two perspectives. One's logic, one's emotion. And if you can remove as much emotion out of the process, allow the consumer to use that emotion to become excited about the property or the product that they're buying versus, so in essence, by providing even a very, very experienced person or a person who is a high net worth person, they're systems oriented. That's why they're high net worth people, and so if you are winging it, you're not, and somebody comes along and they have a system, they're going to follow the person that has the system versus the person who's winging it. And the second thing is, if you can show them there's a reason why I'm putting you through this, why I'm asking you to do this. Here's your win, not mine for having a qualified client in my car, which is what we want. But what does the consumer want? They want someone to lead them to the best possible outcome in every single aspect of our business. And that's why, quite honestly, logic is your friend. And logic also, it provides the steps that, Tom, you've been talking about, where you have a system and you put people through the system. They come to us because they don't understand real estate. They really don't. Some don't. Some do, but
And Todd, to that point, you said something that really stood out, in that you're letting people know why you're doing this, right? So that's something that we really try and do, is like, why are you doing this intake call? Here's what we're going to do with the information you give us during this call. We're going to take it. We're going to go do steps A, B, and C after this call, and this is going to result in the best outcome for you. So.
All right, last one. Lose. I love this one. That's cool. Lose business gracefully.
Love the graphic. So, at the end of the day, all the systems we put in place and all that, I think we've covered that very well, but it's still a personal business, right? Mm-hmm. We are all, if you've been in this business long enough, your friend, neighbor, family member is going to work with somebody else at some point. And I don't care how long you've been doing this, how professional, how big your business is, it's going to sting a little bit. It just does. There's no way around that. And there are definitely two very different ways that you can handle it when that happens. And what I see, and if you spend any time in real estate Facebook groups or things like this, you will see the inevitable story about, my friend worked with another real estate agent and I'm about to unfriend them for life. And you think that's one opinion, but I see a lot of people kind of jumping on that bandwagon. Yeah, never talk to them again. I can't believe they did that to you. That is not losing business gracefully. Right. And I will tell you that in my career, I have gotten dozens of people who have come back to me and worked with me or given me a referral.
They
who
always,
I-
they
yeah,
always come back.
yeah, who didn't
you
work
lost
with
the
me.
business.
Yeah, who I lost
yeah.
because after I swallowed my pride and got my ego in touch here, I reached out to them. Congratulations, that's awesome. I'm so excited for you and your new business. You guys are going to do great there. And then you stay in touch with them. Keep providing the same value as if they were a prospect to begin with. And people notice that. They may not respond to you right away, but they notice it. They pay attention to how you handle
Just
that.
for the people listening, when you said, once I recompose myself, you never were uncomposed to the customer.
No.
That I just want to make sure there was a clear line of understanding there. You didn't come back from being
What are you talking about?
uncomposed with
That's
a consumer.
That's Tom's actual
Yeah.
sword.
Yes.
Well,
No.
Yeah. But again, it's just one of those things that it's not fun to lose business, but sometimes you have
Well,
to move forward.
Well, my continual gift to our broker team is the fact that I delete all the responses in these Facebook groups. I mean, they're the things that I want to say, but when I see a post like that, and oh well, so and so went behind my back and da 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 da. What I want to say is, well, then what did you do wrong? Because when I typically, not all the time, but typically when I lose a deal, it's a breakdown in my system somewhere, whether it's the follow-up and the communication. So before I can get really angry and upset at the lost business, I at least first got to see if I did something wrong, if there was a breakdown in the system, to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Totally.
Yep. Absolutely have to do that. There can be countless reasons why somebody doesn't want to work with you. Sometimes it's not even personal. Maybe they just don't want you to see, like in my business, financials sometimes travel between us and the landlord and things like that. Sometimes they just don't want to send those to you. Your friend doesn't want you to see their bank statements. But to your point, Mike, we can look at okay, where's that breakdown? So what we did is we created a system where they can just go around us and we have them send directly to the a contact for the landlord. So we say, listen, you don't have to share these with us. We'll have you send these directly to the landlord. There's ways around that, but sometimes the reason is not as personal as you would think it is.
Well, we have on our team, we have a 24-hour rule. You are allowed to sulk for 24 hours. When something bad happens, and it often involves a little bit of bourbon or a lot of bourbon, but you get 24 hours to feel sorry for yourself. You get 24 hours to have the pity party. Sometimes that can't be healthy, but it can't go beyond that 24 hours. That next day, you better strap on the boots and get to work again and move on.
This is yes, but this is character. This is integrity. This is business. This gives you that opportunity to review what you did or what your system did and come to the realization of, why did I lose that business? And Mike, you brought it up, so I'm repeating kind of what you said, but I think to this section, number 5, the goal is, why did you lose that business? What can I learn from having lost that business? But also, Tom, you said something. The number one client I've ever had in my life for referral business was somebody who ended up buying from somebody else. And,
Yeah,
and
I've had
while
that,
I was
yeah.
representing them, and then they ended up going and buying from somebody else. And after it wasn't that it was a bad experience, so they wished they'd stayed with me per se, but they got to the point, they got it. The way I handled afterwards, with the same intent on throwing that housewarming party.
You just hit me, dude.
I did.
Ow.
Throwing that
Ow.
housewarming party. Those types of things, Mike, that you always say work so well. You do the same thing, or at least you offer it.
All right, Tom, last question. If you could go back in time, and I've asked you this before, but if you could just go back in time and whisper into Tom's ear, who's just now starting into real estate, and give that Tom, or Kyle for that matter, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah. It's really to, envision what you want your business to look like and only work towards creating it in that vision. So I think we tend to, we talked a lot about chasing this, chasing that, and not kind of staying within our vision in this. It really is. I think all the most successful agents that I know have a really specific way that they do business, a really specific vision, and they follow that to a T. And not only are they most successful, they seem to be some of the happiest agents that I know, because they're not just bumping. They're not in the pinball machine, right? They're the ball bouncing around the pinball machine. No, they have a focus. They run their business the way they want to run their business. Doesn't mean they're going to get all the business because of that, but that's what I would do.
All right, Tom Wolf, appreciate it as always.
you,
And
Tom.
like I said from the onset, if you have a commercial client and you're looking for an agent here at West USA to refer that client to, Tom is my go-to, and he will take incredible care of them. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks,
we leave
Mike. Thanks,
everybody
everyone.
with the quote of the day. Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance. You guys are just making me sappy and soft with
know,
these
buddy. I
things,
know. I like
right? All right. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Go out and sell a home.